Long ago, nestled within the vast green heart of the African continent, there lay the mighty kingdom of Umuchi. Its lands stretched far and wide, surrounded by towering trees, lush vegetation, and rivers that shimmered like glass under the sun. This kingdom was rich in both culture and power. It was ruled by the noble king, Anika, a man known for his wisdom and strength. His people lived in peace, honoring the ways of their ancestors, worshipping the gods, and thriving under the prosperity of his reign. One day, the heavens blessed the kingdom with a gift. A son was born to King Anika's first wife, his beloved queen, Neko. The kingdom rejoiced for the birth of the boy, the prince who would one day sit upon the throne. His name was Obiora, meaning the will of the people. Because from the moment he came into the world, he was the pride and joy of the village. This child will unite our people. He will inherit the throne and the wisdom of our ancestors, said King Anika as he held the newborn. Celebrations lasted for days. The streets of Umuchi were alive with the sounds of music, the rhythm of drums, and the sight of dancers moving in their vibrant traditional attire. Warriors dressed in ceremonial outfits of red and black performed holding their spears high, while the king's griot sang tales of his future greatness. The whole kingdom celebrated. But not all were pleased. In the shadows of the great palace, hidden from the eyes of the joyful crowd, Oge, the second wife of King Anika, watched with darkened eyes. She was a striking woman with skin like polished ebony and dressed in the finest clothes. Yet her heart was heavy with bitterness. Oge had a son of her own, Obina. But with the birth of Obiora, Obina was no longer first in line to the throne, according to the tradition of the land. It was a truth that twisted inside her like a snake. How dare they? How dare they rejoice in this child, when my own son is now cast aside, simply because I am the second wife, whispered Oge to herself. Oge's jealousy festered, growing more intense with each passing day. In her mind, there was only one solution. Obiora had to disappear. And so, under the cover of night, Oge summoned a trusted servant, Chika, a woman who owed her more than loyalty. And with a voice as cold as the night itself, she laid out her wicked command. This child will ruin everything for me. Obina must be king. We must act swiftly, or all is lost. Go and steal Obiora. Take him to the jungle and kill him there. Let death have its way with him. And if anyone asks, tell them the gods have taken him. Chika replied nervously. But my queen, how? The gods would punish us for any harm to the royal blood. Let that be his punishment. The gods would think it was fate, said Queen Oge in a harsh tone. So Chika, trembling with fear, but knowing she had no choice, went to carry out the terrible order. That night, as the kingdom slept under the blanket of the night stars, Chika crept into the palace nursery and took Obina in her arms. The baby slept peacefully, unaware of the danger that awaited him. She began to move quickly, with her footsteps light and silent as she crossed the threshold from the safety of the palace into the unknown darkness of the jungle. The jungle of Akora was no place for a child, let alone a royal one. The trees were ancient and towering, and their branches were intertwined, casting deep shadows on the forest floor. The air was thick with the sounds of creatures. Birds cawing, insects humming, and the distant roars of wild animals. But the servant pushed forward, heart heavy with the weight of her crime. Finally, after what seemed like hours, she reached a clearing. Her heart pounded in her chest as she raised the knife to stab the child, but his innocence overwhelmed her. Chika placed the baby down on the cold earth. She wrapped him in the expensive cloth that had once held his royal birthright, and without a word, she turned and fled back into the night, leaving the child to his fate. On returning to the palace, Chike delivered the news Queen Oge had always wanted. Obiora has gone to meet our ancestors. I killed him in the jungle, said Chika with her face downcast. Now, Obina my son will be king, said Queen Oge, after which she let out a wicked laugh. But it was a sound devoid of humor. That night, Obiora's cries echoed through the jungle, carried on the wind until they reached ears that belonged not to men, but to the beasts of the jungle. A troop of gorillas, mighty creatures who ruled the jungle in their own right, heard the tiny wails and went to investigate. Upon seeing the little boy, one of the gorilla raised a huge rock to smash the human cub. But he was overpowered by their leader, a majestic silverback named Odom, who approached the helpless child. His massive figure loomed over the baby and his fur rippled in the dim moonlight. Odom, though a beast in the eyes of men, was wise beyond the understanding of most. He gazed down at Obiora with eyes full of curiosity and something deeper. Compassion. The child was alone, abandoned by his own kind. But Odom, knowing the ways of the jungle and the fragility of life, made a decision that would change the course of history. He gently lifted the baby in his massive arms and carried him back to the troop.
If you are enjoying this story, don't forget to like, share, and also comment your thoughts. Also subscribe to our channel for more interesting and captivating stories from across Africa so that you won't miss any of our weekly uploads. Thanks for watching. Back to the story.
The next morning, the kingdom of Umuchi was thrown into a gloomy chaos. Their beloved prince and heir to the throne was nowhere to be found. King Anika ordered his greatest warriors to search every house in the village and all the surrounding bushes, but all to no avail. Prince Obiora was nowhere in sight. Queen Neka, the first wife of the king, was engulfed in deep sorrow and refused to be comforted. The child the gods had blessed her with, after many years of seeking, was taken away from her in such a cruel manner. That was one of the darkest periods in the annals of the kingdom. But the village of Umuchi, though regretting the loss of their prince, were left with no other option than to make the toughest decision known to them: to move on without him. But fate had other plans for young Obiora. Under the watchful eyes of Odom and his family, Obiora was raised among the gorillas, not as a human, but as one of their own. The jungle became his new home, his new kingdom. He learned to move like the animals, to survive in the wild, where strength and cunning were the only laws. And in time, he grew strong, not just in body, but in mind. Years passed, and Obiora thrived. His body, now that of a young man, was strong and agile. Stronger than the strength of 10 men combined. He could swing through the trees with the grace of a leopard. His senses were sharpened by the wild. But what set him apart from the others was not his strength, but his mind. While the gorillas relied on instinct, Obiora had the intellect of a human. An intellect he used to improve the lives of his family. He taught them new ways to hunt, to find food where they had never looked before. Obiora taught them new skills, like how to use tools, make spears, set traps, and even lay ambush. This was a knowledge that they never had. He led them through treacherous terrain, avoiding dangers that even the wisest of the gorillas had not seen. In time, the troop came to respect him not just as one of them, but as their leader. Udem, the great silverback, had found his successor. Yet, despite all that he had, Obiora couldn't shake the feeling that he didn't fully belong. There were dreams, visions of a life he couldn't remember, of people he didn't know. A crown, a throne, a family. But the jungle was all he had ever known. As Obiora stood on the edge of a cliff one evening, watching the sun sink into the horizon, the peace of the jungle was shattered. From the distance, he saw something strange. A sight he had never seen before. Smoke rising from the trees. It was coming from the village at the edge of the forest. The men of the kingdom were coming closer. Later, Obiora started receiving reports from some gorillas of how humans started venturing deeper into the jungle, hunting some of them for food and cutting down trees for their fires. They were moving deeper than they had before, and Obiora's heart filled with dread. The jungle was his home. The gorillas were his family. And now, those who had cast him out as a child were coming for them. He knew the peace he had fought to protect for so long was in danger. As the sun disappeared behind the mountains, casting the jungle in darkness, Obiora's mind raced with thoughts of what was to come. Something in his blood stirred. A connection to the world beyond the trees. A feeling that he could not explain.